Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Friday, June 24th. This is Africa 54.
Commonwealth leaders meet in Rwanda to discuss trade, health, and climate issues, but a British policy to deport asylum seekers remains a hot-button topic. The insurgency in northern Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province is a nightmare scene. Villages bombed and burned and crimes of rape, abductions, and killings. VOA has an exclusive documentary. And in our entertainment report, Heather Maxwell speaks with multi-award-winning Ghanaian artist Black Sherif.
Commonwealth leaders met in Rwanda Friday to discuss cooperation on topics from trade to health to climate against a backdrop of criticism of host Rwanda's human rights record and of a British policy to deport asylum seekers to the country. The Commonwealth, a group of 54 countries, most of which are former British colonies, encompasses about one-third of humanity and presents itself as a network of equal partners with shared goals such as democracy, peace, and prosperity. Rwanda joined the Commonwealth in 2009. Rwandan President Paul Kagame on Friday, in a speech at the opening ceremony, paid tribute to Queen Elizabeth, who is the head of the Commonwealth. As Commonwealth member states gathered for their 26th meeting, Britain's Prince Charles and other leaders reiterated the urgent need to fight climate change, prepare for future global shocks, and create strong synergy to mitigate the negative impact of the war in Ukraine. Eugene Owimana reports from Kigali.
One of the issues of discussion in this year's Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting is how to speak one voice to fight the negative impacts of the Russia-Ukraine war.
One of the greatest affronts to everything we stand for is Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Putin's blockade of the ports that would otherwise be shipping food to the world's poorest people. At this moment, nearly 25 million tons of corn and wheat is piled up in silos across Ukraine, held hostage by Russia.
Speaking at the official opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, the Prince of Wales, Charles, highlighted other shocks the world is facing. He said the partnership with the Commonwealth member countries could be a shield.
Treasure the friendships we have built over these past 70 years and look forward to their deepening in the years ahead. As we build back from the pandemic that has devastated so many lives, as we respond to climate change and biodiversity loss that threatens our very existence, and as we see lives destroyed by the unattenuated aggression of violent forces, such friendships are more important than ever.
Rwanda is going to take over from the United Kingdom the leadership of the Commonwealth Secretariat, one of the milestones the UK says have achieved during its 2-year tenure is the delivery of 1.4 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines to Commonwealth countries. Rwandan President Paul Kagame says his country will keep realizing the meaning of the Commonwealth.
Everything we do, including joining the Commonwealth in 2009, is aimed at making sure that our people are connected, included, and forward-looking.
Rwanda is hosting the program after Uganda in 2007. 15 years later, leaders of 54 member countries of the Commonwealth say are back in Africa to forge new innovative ways to create a common and shared bright future, leaving no one behind. For African leaders, their target is to build a prosperous and resilient continent. That is an idea embedded in the African Union's Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Eugene Uwimana for VOA News, Kigali, Rwanda.
Former Angolan President José Eduardo dos Santos is in intensive care at a clinic in Barcelona, Spain, according to Portuguese news agency Lusa. Dos Santos, 79, has been receiving medical treatment since 2019, but his health deteriorated and he was admitted to an intensive care unit without saying when this occurred. The final installment of the Zondo Commission's inquiry into alleged high-level corruption under Jacob Zuma has been submitted to South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. David Doyle has the details.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa should have known more about corruption under his predecessor Jacob Zuma. The final installment of a major inquiry has shown. The Zondo Commission was set up in 2018 to probe allegations of high-level graft during Zuma's 9-year tenure. He's suspected of colluding with businessmen close to him, the Gupta brothers, to plunder state resources.
They just remain friends.
They deny all allegations.
Friends to everybody else.
The report published Wednesday said Ramaphosa told the Commission he had no first-hand knowledge of any wrongdoing, only media reports. But as Deputy President for 4 years under Zuma, the Commission said Ramaphosa should have done more towards making his own inquiries. Ramaphosa received the report from Senior Judge Raymond Zondo at the Union Buildings in Pretoria.
The report is far more than a record of widespread corruption, fraud and abuse. It is also an instrument through which the country can work to ensure that such events, such as state capture, never ever happen again in our country.
The Commission's report is the culmination of 3 years of hearings involving some 300 witnesses, including Ramaphosa himself. And it comes at an awkward time. Police are investigating money laundering allegations against Ramaphosa after millions of dollars were allegedly stolen from his farm. He has welcomed the inquiry. Ramaphosa also faces a divided party ahead of this year's African National Congress elective conference. It will decide whether to give him a second run at president in elections expected for 2024.
5 and 6. That's 5 and 6.
Ramaphosa's office was not immediately available for comment. On receiving the report, the president said the government would come up with an implementation plan for the Commission's proposals within 4 months.
David Doe of Reuters filed that report. A Glencore subsidiary has pleaded guilty to multiple counts of bribery after admitting to giving inducements to African officials. The mining conglomerate anticipates paying over $1 billion to settle corruption and market manipulation violations. VOA's Paul Ndiho has more.
A subsidiary of British mining and trading giant Glencore formally pleaded guilty to 7 counts of bribery concerning oil operations in Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, and South Sudan. The Swiss-based multinational company expects to pay up to $1.5 billion to settle bribery and market manipulation wrongdoings. Subsidiaries in the US, Brazil, and Britain have now pleaded guilty to criminal offenses. Glencore CEO Gary Nagler said in a statement issued to reporters, "We recognize there has been misconduct in this company historically. We have worked hard to correct that." U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland in May said a $1.1 billion agreement with the U.S. will resolve a decade-long scheme to bribe foreign officials across 7 countries and separate criminal and civil charges alleging one of the companies trading arms manipulated oil prices at 2 of the U.S. largest shipping ports.
Today, the Justice Department is announcing charges in 2 separate districts and in 2 separate criminal cases involving Glencore, one of the world's largest mining and commodity trading companies. The company has agreed to plead guilty in each case.
Lawrence Ndikumana, a professor of economics at the University of Massachusetts and a co-author of the book On the Trail of Capital Flight from Africa, The Takers and the Enablers, says in the last 5 decades, Africa has lost nearly $60 billion, which is more than the continent has received in foreign aid, foreign direct investments, and remittances to corruption.
So we chose 3 countries with deliberate attempt to have some representation of the countries that have suffered the most from capital flight. We chose Angola, Cote d'Ivoire, and South Africa, and they all feature very highly in terms of the amount of capital flight in our analysis. But those countries also have something in common, which is high endowment in natural resources. Angola is one of the premier exporters of oil. Cote d'Ivoire is one of the probably the top exporter of cocoa, and South Africa has virtually everything.
Ndikumana argues that African citizens should be concerned because the capital flight is funded and fueled by money from minerals and resources that belong to the African people, but end up enriching private individuals embezzling those funds.
South Africa is one of the most, if not the most, unequal society in the world. In Angola, wealth commingles with abject poverty. In Cote d'Ivoire, the farmers who are producing the cocoa are still poor.
Glencore Energy is to be sentenced in November after admitting to paying more than 28 million in bribes to secure preferential access to oil and generate illicit profits between 2011 and 2016. The November sentencing will likely wrap up a multinational inquiry. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Public service workers in Uganda are threatening to join the ongoing teacher strike. The workers are also condemning government intimidation tactics and a biased salary raise proposal. 9 public service unions have signed a solidarity agreement with Uganda National Teachers Union to join the strike if the government goes ahead with its threat to delete from the government payroll names of teachers who do not show up for work. In northern Mozambique's province of Cabo Delgado, an Islamic State group has terrorized residents since 2017. The group, known locally as Al-Shabaab, is feared for its brutal killings, which include beheadings, abducting people, including children, and burning down schools and hospitals. African nations have joined Mozambican forces to rein in the insurgents, but without much success. VOA's reporters Amancio Vilanculos and Omari Kaseko recently visited Cabo Delgado and produced a documentary titled Escaping Cabo Delgado Nightmare. Here's a short preview.
Most of the displaced were accustomed to subsistence farming. Growing at least some of their own food can help them toward rebuilding their pride, rebuilding their lives. Abdul Karimo came to this Mituj district camp for internally displaced people in April 2020 after fleeing Kisanga district. He is rebuilding a house for himself, his wife, and their 6 children. But they all live amid uncertainty.
Agora o que eu estou a recordar sobre o ataque? É para a recordação que eu estou a ver sobre aqueles agentes. Quase eu não estou a gostar para voltar para trás. Perdemos um vizinho aí, logo apanharam, cortaram, até deixavam ali na estrada, tínhamos uma barraca aí, ali no mercado, cortaram ali mesmo apanhavam muitas pessoas, mas aquelas tinham salvado, não cortaram nada, mas ele já tinha cortado. Ele foi cortado através de, ele usava uma camiseta de denúncia. Então, logo, quando viram de que esse aqui é quem, afinal de contas, você está a seguir este aqui, logo eles pegaram e cortaram. Então, aquelas pessoas outras logo deixaram.
Authorities say it is safe to return to Kisanga.
O nosso distrito está calmo, mas muito calmo. O sentimento de medo é quem a pessoa onde teve esses problemas, na falta de ter medo, mas depois há uma vontade de voltar a casa.
Despite the police chief's reassurances, many of the displaced are reluctant to go back, haunted by their experiences.
Mas isso de voltar para a zona, nem sei bem porquê. Até agora eles estão a atacar. Então não acho conveniente que agora aqui gosto de voltar para trás porque estou assim com mãos cruzadas porque eles ainda estão a atacar. Então pelo menos aqui, como aqui ainda não chegaram, É para nós pretendemos estar aqui. Só que estamos a sofrer, não estamos em ver lugar para vivência. Veja ali esses alpendres. Com esta chuva aqui, pinga. Até agora que eu estou na construção, aí estou a tentar construir. Minha alpendre tinha caído com o vento, aquele vento que vinha.
For displaced people like Fernando, one of the few resources they have in abundance is time.
For more on escaping Cabo Delgado's nightmare, I'm joined by VOA's Portuguese reporter Amancio Vilanculos. Amancio, welcome back to Africa 54.
Thank you, Esther.
Now, since you left Cabo Delgado, has the situation changed?
Not really. Actually, since we left Cabo Delgado, I think it was in early April, there have been attacks in areas where authority used to say they're safe, like places like Mkwabe. We had the chief police of Kisanga telling people that it's safe to return, but actually people now are fleeing from those areas that they are considered free. So it's not safe at all.
What makes Cabo Delgado different from other parts of Mozambique?
First of all, I think Cabo Delgado has been in war with some interruption for the last 50 years. As you can recall in history, it was in 1964, exactly in Cabo Delgado, where Mozambique Frelimos, at the time a liberation front, started the liberation war against the Portuguese. And most of the fighters were actually people from Cabo Delgado because it's where the war against colonialism started. And in 1975, coming independence, Cabo Delgado did not get enough from the government, I mean in terms of investment, social, and you talk about education, health, and all other areas of development. So in a way, Cabo Delgado, being the main point of the liberation struggle, became one of the most neglected provinces in the country.
It looks like there's an element of disgruntled people. However, the kind of killings that we're talking about of another level, another proportion, that kind of brutality. Did the officials you talked to say they are kind of certain they will be able to defeat these insurgents?
Actually, they've been saying that even before we interviewed them. They used to tell people that it's safe, they're fighting against the insurgents. But first of all, perhaps, Esther, we have to remember that when this started, Mozambique government refused to accept there was a problem. After the attack in Palma in early 2020, it's when they accepted, and then they had the help from Rwanda to begin with, and then other armies from the SADC region, Southern Africa region. They joined Mozambique to fight against these insurgents. And still they say things are improving, but in real terms they're not improving because this group, they're not attacking in big groups like guerrilla war, like 5 or 10 people going and killing and beheading people. So in a way, according to military experts, it's very hard to fight such a group. But this is also against what the government have been promising people, that it's safe. So it's still a long way, like experts say, to win this battle.
And Amancio, I have to say thank you very much for your bravery with Omari going to get that documentary shot there. Thank you for your insight into this topic. Amancio Vilanculos is a VOA Portuguese service reporter. A short time ago, in a major announcement, the United States Supreme Court announced that the 1973 ruling protecting abortion as a constitutional right has been overturned, allowing states to either ban or allow the procedure as they so choose. The ruling was anticipated via a leak of a draft that surfaced in early May. For more on this story, visit voaafrica.com. In other African news, unidentified armed bandits in Mali attacked the police station in the town of Fana. At least one police officer was killed and another one wounded. 29 people abducted in Nigeria's northwest region while returning home from a wedding have been freed. Armed bandits kidnapped the group between Sokoto and Zamfara states. And Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud says he has tested positive for COVID-19 and was in self-isolation. Internally displaced persons in northern Ethiopia's Afar region are leaving some camps due to a lack of food and shelter. The United Nations warns that returning home may not be a better situation and are calling for more international support. Halima Thumani reports from Semera, Ethiopia.
Afar region officials say this camp in Dupti, northern Ethiopia, houses about 30,000 internally displaced persons. Many were forced to flee fighting between Tigray regional forces and federal troops and their allies. Others fled a record drought that has killed millions of livestock and left millions of Ethiopians facing hunger. Myra Muhammad is a mother of 3 who in January walked for days and 400 kilometers to reach the camp, only to find it overcrowded and without enough food or shelter.
I don't know what's better for us, because even if I return home, no one will support me. We don't get sufficient support here. I don't know what's better for us. I feel more stressed and I'm more worried about returning.
Myra is not alone. In June alone, Afar disaster officials say at least 8,000 internally displaced persons, IDPs, returned home because of shortages and the closure of one camp. The UN's refugee agency says since March, 12,000 IDPs in the region returned home.
There's a lack of resources. Sometimes it comes in bits. Sometimes we distribute to 300, 400, or 500 households. So it causes conflict for those who don't receive.
Russia's war on Ukraine has taken global attention and driven up the cost of food aid. The UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office in Ethiopia says they need $3 billion to meet IDP needs, and those who return home may be worse off.
Because if they return somewhere where there is no health center, there is no schools, no access to water, water is not running, no electricity, no banking system, no telecommunication, I mean, obviously the situation is remaining very, very difficult.
Meanwhile, IDPs in the camps wait in the scorching heat for help, rationed fast to the most vulnerable. Mother of 6, Asia Hussein, is among the lucky ones getting food today.
I have 6 children, and to be honest, this food is not enough. But what shall we do?
Ethiopians displaced by war and drought with no good options. Halima Athmani for VA News, Semera, Ethiopia.
It's time for Entertainment Report, and here's Heather Maxwell. Hello, Heather.
Hello, everyone. Fête de la Musique celebrated its 40th birthday on Tuesday. Every year on June 21st, the first day of summer in the Northern Hemisphere, cities and towns across France have celebrated this music festival. In Paris, the streets were filled with music and dance. The purpose is to get people to get outside and make the music in the streets their own. Its founder, Jacques Lang, now age 82, hatched the idea during his tenure as France's cultural minister, declaring music will be everywhere and concerts nowhere. Senegalese music icon Youssou N'Dour performed at the Élysée Palace, the French president's office and residence in central Paris. Today, the festival, also known as Music Day, takes place in more than 1,000 cities across 120 countries. In New York City, French rapper of Senegalese and Chadian descent, MC Solar, was a top headliner. Now, in England, the Glastonbury Festival, which runs Sunday, is proceeding for the first time in 3 years of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's the largest greenfield music festival in the world. Revelers poured into the festival site Wednesday at Worthy Farm in southwest England. More than 200,000 people are expected. Paul McCartney and Diana Ross are slated to perform. Africa's contingent includes Angelique Kidjo, Little Sims, Burna Boy, Sampa the Great, Moonchild Finelli, Les Amazones d'Afrique, Thames, and Seun Kuti and Egypt 80. Finally, music is in the air right here at VOA on Music Time in Africa. This week, I interviewed a multi-award-winning artist from Ghana. He's just 2 years out of high school and is already rocking that nation's urban music scene. Hello, Black Sherif. How are you doing?
Hi, Heather. How are you doing?
First question I have, how did you come about having the name Black Sherif?
Like, I just needed like a fine name, and Sherif is my name, yeah? So I just had to add the black to like make it heavy.
It seems to me like oftentimes you're coming from a place of anger. And I wonder if there is something you're angry about.
I grew up in Konongo Zongo. Like Zongos are like the slummy parts of the hood. You grew up with like a bit of aggressiveness, you understand?
When you say you want something, that definitely comes across in maybe your first video called Money.
That was the first song like that introduced me to the streets in Accra and like in Konongo Zongo. Right? Yeah, I was just 18 at that time.
Well, you're only 20 now.
Yeah, I'm 20 now. I had 29th of January.
Back to the music. You had two songs. One is Sermon 1 and one is Sermon 2. Summarize, what were the sermons about? Just the hard life on the streets?
Yeah, that's all, you understand? But I tell it through like stories. Yeah, it actually talks about like the hard life on the streets and like the freedom of the youth.
So most everything you rap and sing about is true. They're true stories. They're things either you lived or your friends lived or things you saw.
Yeah, things that I saw, like things that people told me about. There are a lot of hidden truths out here.
And this song be for my mommy, then every mommy outside. Big love to the mommy dems.
Congrats on your recent awards. I watched and listened to you receiving the award at the Ghana Music Awards. You gave thanks to your aunties. Can you comment a little more on that?
I was in grade 5, I was 10 years, man. My mommy left me for abroad to join my daddy abroad. So like I lived with my aunties. Yeah, so my aunties have been like, you know what I'm saying? Like I just needed to give them that award. Like, actually, the first time that I told them, like none of them actually believed. It was like, how? Why is Sherif want to make music? How? It was kind of like unbelievable because you wouldn't think like Sherif would go out to like make music.
Last question. What can we look forward to from you next?
My tape. That's what I've been working on. That's what I've been putting my all in like all this while. I'm not done actually, but what I've been listening to and like what I've been creating, I just can tell you it's fire. Yeah, and like it's in depth of like what you want to know about me, like my perspectives about life, my insecurities and that.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, Black Sherif, and best of luck with you in the future.
Thank you so much. God bless you so much.
No problem. It's Ghana.
Yes, you know. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, and be sure to catch my full interview with Black Sherif and more on Music Time in Africa's YouTube channel, Facebook page, or radio program that broadcasts this Sunday. That's it for today. Esther.
Thank you so much, Heather. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend.